Okay, I'm going to very quickly build this so that you can see the process. In order to get the blue lines that I already set up, hold the Command key down and hit the colon, which is next to the L key. I'm going to leave these up for now so that you can use them as guides to measure. First thing I'm going to do is grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw his head like this. Then, since most of him is this color right here, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and with this selected over here, I'm going to click on this color. Notice that it changed the attributes over here in the color palette with the color of the monster, but the color doesn't include a stroke or an outline. So I'm going to click over on the right hand side to select that box with the line through it and select black. Now everything I draw from here on out is going to have those attributes. So I'm going to draw another rectangle, and I'm going to take it straight down from his neck and make it very skinny. You'll notice that it's actually tapers off here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pen tool and click on the rectangle on that blue line, which will add another point to it, another control point. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now with the direct selection tool, and remember there's two different kinds of tools. There's a selection tool which selects everything, and then there's a direct selection tool which selects individual points or individual lines. The best way to select individual lines is to actually click and drag a rectangle around the area that you want to select, and what that'll do, again, that will select that individual line. It also selected this point because it's part of that line. I'm hitting Command Z to undo that. So since it tapers out that way, I'm going to actually select this line and pull it out to the right. And I'm going to select this line and pull it out to the left, and this one to the right. It's not exactly how I want it, but for the time being it will do. Another way to affect those, I'm going to hit Command Z twice. Another way to affect those and to make them spread out at the same way is to grab both lines by clicking and dragging over both lines like this. Then I'm going to hit the size tool, which is right here, or the scale tool. I'm going to click once in the middle, hold the Shift key down, and then click and drag to the left. And that way it makes it symmetrical. So with this part saved, before I get too far into this, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I've named it demo_monster.ai, but you want to save it as monster2 _ your first initial last name .ai. So I'm going to do File, Save As. I'm going to navigate to where I want to keep it. You're going to actually save these on your Google Drive, and you can actually work from your Google Drive as well. And I don't know if I have a monster folder in here, so I'm going to create one. New folder. And I'm going to actually call it 00_monster. And the reason I do that is because when I save it, it'll go right to the top of the list. So if I go back to my Google Drive, now 00monster is at the top of my list. I do that for the reason, or for the purpose of making it easy to find things. I can change that later without any problem. So I'm going to save this again as monster2, and since it's already selected as demo monster, I'm just going to select the M and everything to the left of the M. Monster. I'm hitting the arrow keys on my keyboard. 2 _ first initial last name .ai and save. And OK. So now I'm going to very quickly add features and just talk you through the process as I add them. For the rectangle tool, in order to get the circles for the eyes, notice that there's this little triangle down here. click on that triangle and hold it down with your mouse and go down to Ellipse tool. If I want to zoom in here, there's a couple of ways to zoom in. The way I prefer to do it is to hold the space bar down, which changes your cursor into a hand. And what that does is that allows you to move things around the screen. And then I'm going to hold the Command key down with the space bar still held, and you should get the magnifying glass tool. I'm going to zoom in all the way into this by clicking and dragging a rectangle around the area, and that blows it up to that size. Then with the Ellipse tool selected, I'm just going to drag a couple of circles out. Now again, this has the attributes from the color of his body, but I can change that very easily by going up to my color palette and clicking the fill and making it white. Now there's a couple of ways to duplicate objects. The quickest way is to hold the Option key down and the Command key, and again, notice how the cursor changes. Whatever tool you have selected, when you hold the Command key down, it changes into the Selection tool, or in this case, the Direct Selection tool. So I can actually click and drag and move this object around. I'm hitting Command Z to put it back. But if I want to duplicate it at the same time, I can hold the Option key down and watch what happens to the cursor. It changes to a plus sign. So now I'm going to click and drag this eye over here, and now I have two eyes. So it duplicates and copies at the same time, or duplicates the object. So now I'm going to hold the Command key down and hit the 0, not to be confused with the O, which is right below it on the keyboard. And that'll put my page back to the way it was. So now instead of doing rectangles, I'm going to quickly do the rectangles for the feet or the legs. Again, in order to get that color, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and click here. And the way you do that is always have the object that you want to change the color to selected before you use the eyedropper tool on the other one. Again, I'm going to use that same feature of holding the Command key down and the Option key, clicking and dragging to the right to duplicate those legs. I'm going to do the arms a little bit differently, but with these two legs selected, with the Selection tool, I'm going to move them behind this shape by holding the Command key down and hitting the left bracket a couple of times. What that does is that goes one step at a time and sends it backward. Another way to do that would be to select them, cut them by hitting Command X, selecting the body area, and to paste behind that body area, it's Command B. I'll show you later how to make the stripes on the legs, but for now I just want to very quickly do the arms. I'm going to use, instead of using the rectangle tool, I'm going to use the pen tool because the arms are a little more free form. I'm going to click and drag to the left, and then down here where the hand is, I'm going to click and drag this way. These two control bars or control points allow me to change this curve. With the pen tool selected, I'm going to hold the Option key down, and you'll notice that the cursor is going to change from a pen to a little divot look, a little V shape. When I click on that point, it's going to eliminate this control bar, control handle. What that allows me to do is start off with the curve and then have a straight line from here to the next point. Now I'm going to hold the Option key down again. It's going to change again. See how the cursor changes? It changes to a little V shape next to the pen. What that's going to let me do is it's going to let me click and drag a line this way, a control bar or a control handle this way, and then put my cursor up here and create that same shape to try and make it look like that one. Now I'm going to I'm going to Option click on this again, and then I'm going to Option click on the final point to close that shape. Notice how when I roll a cursor across there, see that little circle that comes up. that means I've hit the point. So now I have this whole object as his arm, and I'm not going to send it to the back yet because I'm going to do something slightly different with that. To create this part of the hand, I'm just going to do 4 points. And I just noticed that I have the wrong measurement. The top of the hand needs to be here, the bottom of the hand here. So I'm going to use the direct selection tool. I'm going to click and drag a box or rectangle around all of those points. Notice how it didn't select these points, but you can see that it selected the handle control points here. And then I'm just going to click and drag this up here. So that allows me to, the direct selection tool allows me to move individual points or select a bunch of points and move them or change them all at the same time. I'm going to do very simple triangles for his fingers. Rather than doing the curves, I'm just going to go click once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. I'm going to do the thumb at the same time by clicking here and then back up here. And then again, I'm going to close this shape by putting my cursor over the first point and clicking. Now these points are not where they necessarily need to be, so I'm going to zoom in by holding the space bar, Command key, zoom in, and now I can use the direct selection tool to move these points to where they need to be. You can do these objects individually, or you can move them all at the same time. And since these objects are behind the hand, I'm going to click in the center area. I'm going to cut this out by hitting Command X, and I'm going to paste it behind here by hitting Command B. Then I'm going to hold the Command key down and hit the 0 to see what we have. So that's how you would do that clawed hand, simply. If I were doing this at home, I would probably do curves on all of this, but I'm not going to do that for now. So I'm going to select this entire arm and show you how to duplicate something in a slightly different way. So I'm going to use this selection tool, drag a rectangle around all of this. I'm going to group it by hitting Command G. That will make it all one object that I can move. And then I'm going to go up here to this tool, which normally would allow me to rotate. So I could rotate the arm. But it also, there's another menu down here called Reflect. So with the Reflect tool selected, I'm going to hold the Option key down, click right in the center of his chest. Notice there's horizontal and vertical. I'm going to leave it at vertical. You can preview it to see where it's going to end up. But what I'm going to do is I want to duplicate it, so I'm going to hit Copy. And since you probably just heard the bell in the background, I'm going to stop right here for now and show the rest in class. Before I do that though, I want to put these two arms behind the body. So I'm going to hold the Shift key down, select this arm, cut them out, Command X, select the body, paste behind, Command B. One last thing I'm going to show you before I go too much farther on this is I want the arms to be part of the body. See how there's no line here? So I'm going to use the direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this, and it'll, even though these are grouped objects, I'm going to click on this one part of his arm, and it'll only select that. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, click this arm, and then I'm going to cut them by hitting Command C. Excuse me, that's copy. Command X. Then I'm going to click on his chest again and hit Command F for paste in front. Now the last thing I'm going to do before I go is I'm going to hold the Shift key down, click on his body, and then go to my Pathfinder tool. My Pathfinder tool does a variety of things. In this case, what I want to do with the Pathfinder tool, which is under the window menu, and I'm going to click this very first one. Watch what happens in here when I click this first box. It combines them all into one shape. The other thing that it does is it also moves it to the front of everything else. So now the torso and the arms are now one piece, separate from the hands. These objects, though, the hands are actually still grouped together. So that works to my advantage when I want to start moving things around. So this is all I'm going to do for today, and I'll show you the rest later. The last thing you want to do is hit save. It'll automatically save it wherever you saved it, and then we'll go to the next step tomorrow.